January meeting, and I'll read the civic affirmation. We gather today to duly and faithfully carry out our duties to the best of our judgment and ability for the advancement of this district and the benefit of all of our community and fellow citizens. The Coorong District Council members acknowledge and pay respects to the traditional custodians of the land and waters, the Ngarrindjeri people, whose ancestral lands are on which we meet here today. We acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and relationship of Aboriginal people. Pay our respects to elders past and present. We also extend that respect to all First Nation people. Thank you, everyone. Next item on the agenda is apologies, and we do have one. Councillor O'Hara is still not well after his trip, so he's an apology today. I move to acknowledgements. Just Travis Hay is here today. Welcome, Travis. He's our acting roads and infrastructure director until the new director arrives in late February at this stage, councillors and everyone. Acknowledgements. I've got to acknowledge the gifting of some books here. Jetstar and Glider, this one here. Jeff Loveday has gifted 3 copies of this book titled Jetstar and Glider, a story about 2 pelicans from Wellington East and their adventures in the Coorong, Kangaroo Island and the River to Murray Bridge. The story was inspired by pelicans that hatched not far from his grandson's home. Jeff Loveday generously provided 1 copy for the CEO, Richard Mather, and 2 further copies which will be gifted to council's libraries, and I think we might buy a couple more, so all 4 libraries have got this book. We also acknowledge the gift of a major reference book. This is a beauty, from Adrian Wells on behalf of Patras Education Group. This book, called The Rivers and Wetlands of the Murray-Darling Basin, has been written for primary school students as part of the Roots and Shoots program and has been made available free to 4,000 schools across Australia. This book includes a few pages about the volunteers at our much-loved Pangarinda Botanic Garden and highlights their valuable contribution for the betterment of the garden and the community. We thank those donors for those books. Thank everyone. Declarations of conflict of interest. Councillor Peach.
I'd like to declare a general conflict of interest in relation to decision report 10.3, and I intend to stay in the room and vote.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else with any declarations of conflict of interest? None. I move on to the confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting, including the confidential minutes held on the 19th of December 2023. Please, someone move that way. Councillor Arthur, for a seconder. Councillor Rountree. Is there any discussion around the accuracy of them? Councillors closed. I put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 5, adjourned business. We have none. Nil. Number 6, reports by members. 6.1, the Mayor's report. Any questions, councillors? There being none, I'll move on to 6.2, council members' reports. Councillor Arthur, anything you wish to highlight? A long report.
Let's put a question.
No one has. Councillor Coleman, yours is the next report. You want to highlight anything?
Oh, just probably the Murray-Darling Association National Conference we had at Murray Beach, Mr. Mayor. I thought it was quite an informative event, and pros and cons of our lifeblood, the old River Murray and Darling and so forth, and yeah, it was quite educational. Thank you.
Certainly was. It was very well run. Okay. Councillor Rountree, anything you'd like to highlight in your report?
The only thing I'd highlight is I think the community information days that we have when we move around the district, I think they work really well. But not
Counselling community.
Counselling community, that's the wording. Yes, thank you.
Part of our R&I day.
Yeah, it's good.
That's good. Okay, and your report's about 2 years, 1 year long.
It's a little
extensive.
It's extensive, and I apologise.
No, that's fine.
Tardiness.
No, just fine. Okay, that's fine. Number 7, petitions, we have nil. Number 8, deputations, I have nil. Number 9, public question time, there's nothing, Ashley? No, so I have nil. Number 10.1 is Murray-Darling Association Region 6 AGM, nomination of a council representatives. There's 2 options there, councillors. My understanding is we don't have to nominate a councillor or someone to the position of regional chair if we don't want to. My understanding. Tell me if someone's wrong. But it would be wise. So if you just didn't want to, and I'm particularly looking at the 2 delegates, whether they were ambitious in that area. But otherwise, option 2 is probably our motion. So anyone want to be? Councillor?
Move option 2.
You want to move option 2? Councillor Bland?
Second.
Now, Councillor Arthur's the seconder. Righto. Councillor Bland?
Unless somebody desperately wants to be chair of the piece. But I think it's definitely beneficial to have our 2 representatives and CEO.
Okay. Anyone? Councillor Arthur? You the same view?
Yeah, so.
Councillors, you'd be aware I think we've all been invited, Ashley, to something on the 3rd of February at Goolwa.
Yes.
The launch of the Glim Research Centre. And I'm trying to get the right words, but I can't.
Big long word.
Big long word, but we had a presentation at a workshop recently, didn't we? Did we? All of us, yes, we did. Okay. Anyone else wish to say anything around this motion? Being none, you're closing, councillor. Okay, I put the motion as option 2 as it reads. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 2, restrictions to farming property solar inverters. There is a recommendation. Councillor, you got a...
I'm happy to move and I've got some comments.
Okay, well, how about we get you to move it first? And is there a seconder? Councillor Beach is the seconder. Councillor Roundtree, you've got the floor.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you to Miles for the work he did in actually getting the background behind this. Really appreciate the effort you went to, because I think there are some clear things that are holding it back. So yeah, just thank you for doing that, and I support the recommendation.
Certainly.
Comment on your vote, can't take all the credit. The fact that we've got bigger on the left, that the other vehicle facing there to come next there.
Right. Thank you.
Councillor, do you want to speak to it?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support what Councillor Roundtree's just said. I think a regional approach is probably a good one in terms of trying to get some leverage. So more than happy to second the motion.
Anyone else? Councillor Arthur.
Yeah, I just
you're
think what we're doing is a good way of going about it. You know, but you've got to change national policy, and so like we don't want to spend too much money on trying to change national policy and the way that things are today. And you see, New South Wales is half its off the grid at the present moment. So, the approach that's been taken there is the right one.
Okay.
Definitely is.
No one else? For closing?
Close.
The motion is, as is the recommendation, that council lobbies the Regional Development Australia Murraylands and Riverland, the South Australian Regional Organisation of Councils through the Murraylands and Riverlands LGA, to undertake further investigation of the constraints to farming properties connecting to renewable energy and provide representation to relevant authorities. Those in favour of the motion? Those against? Carried unanimously. Number 3, this is a fee waiver for Elite Star Studio to use at a lower rate the Tintinara War Memorial Hall. Councillor Peach has declared earlier a general interest in this item. Someone prepared to move that way? Councillor Roundtree and Councillor Bland. Councillor Roundtree,
No, I think the recommendation is sensible and I support it.
okay, Councillor Bland,
I support it, and I think services to our children, coming out for these sorts of activities through the Coorong is important.
anyone else? You'll close.
Closed.
I put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Number 4. I might just actually ask, if you want to just briefly speak to this so that everyone understands what it is.
Thank you. Yeah, we have this with the previous chamber, will remember the Coorong waters issue, and had spoken back something going aside. It's a private development, and it involved the landowners association setting a water service scheme originally. Part of that solution was a utilities block that would have the rainwater storage tanks. Right? Noting that SA Water do have a service close by. The developer had some issues financially, and the history of this is that it didn't quite pan out to establish the landowners association, and it was on a process to council that helped resolve issues. And we did certainly assist with that. There was still then this utilities block, which was freehold, in the hands of one owner. That owner has now sold that to the existing landowners who have largely resolved issues on their own without the need for council's help. So they have pretty much everything that was a legacy issue with that development now has been resolved. The last piece of the puzzle is that there are 2 very small parcels of land that have Sapling transformer infrastructure on them, and they were associated with utilities block. Request now to council to transfer those in the council's name so that that utilities block can be sold for a residential block. Yeah, there's no impediment to actually sell that zoning wise. It can be sold now and just built on it, and potentially landowners can put the issues to bed. The transfer of these various small parcels, they're contiguous with council land, so they're alongside the council reserve land, and they would present no ongoing cost or impediment to the council. They are so small and inconsequential. So hence we recommend you to do in the process. All costs of transfer are borne by land.
Questions?
Question 3, Mr. Mayor, and that is just clarification. That's all reserved land under care and control of council, but not owned. No, that is owned by council. So part of the land division and the LMA, so there's a land management agreement that's still established since that strip of land, which is low maintenance land, but it's important there's a buffer between the Coorong, so right adjacent to that is the Coorong. It effectively acts as a buffer between housing development and Coorong. And that section they can never be built on? They never be built on. So in relation to those other blocks, and I notice there's obviously some access tracks through there. Are they tracks that have been, are they drawn? No, they're pedestrian access, so there can't be any vehicle access. Right. So there's some very strict caveats in the land management agreement that are established by the equivalent of the on the day. And the other thing about that land, it is within the 100-metre mark from the river, so within the. And the other question I would have is, what do we do down there in terms of basically general mowing maintenance there, and to support these other 2 blocks as well? You're already doing that particular block, Travis, it's low maintenance.
Yeah, natives.
That's all we're doing. And that's what we've always designed to be. So DW want ensure that, the environment you have immediately adjacent to, which is a national park, is reflected in the council report.
Think we'll get have to send staff down there to look up.
Nothing that will change. Nothing that's already done, apart from on paper. That's all.
Nothing.
Question, councillor Roundtree, you're moving.
I'm happy to move it. I think, this makes sense. Being up to what council plans asked and your response.
Is there a
Not
second?
gonna cost it.
Councillor Maidman is the seconder. You sort of half spoke to a councillor, sorry.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Councillor Maidman, you want to speak?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just to thank councillor Bland for her questions, because they were actually what I was going to ask as well, so. It was. That's
Any other
good.
people wish to speak to it? Questions? Councillor Peach?
Just one question. Is there any benefit to absorbing that into existing title or maintaining them as separate?
But, through the chair, I don't think there's any benefit. I mean, it probably isn't worth the cost involved in doing that. So effectively, they're doing a land division to effectively move those parcels over to our allotment. I wouldn't go any further than that. It's the equivalent of having an easement on a property.
Thank you.
There's nothing. Councillor Arthur?
Just one question, what sort of ongoing costs, if any, will be involved? You know, so it's another property we have to look after. Do we have to look after section 50 at the present moment? It'll be exact on that or not?
So it'll be exactly the same as section 50. Section 50, as we said before, is low maintenance, land, reserve land. This won't add any cost to that.
All right. Councillor Roundtree, you're closed.
Closed.
So the motion is as is the recommendation, councillors. So I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour? As against, that's carried unanimously. But 11.1 information reports, councillors. First one is from the Office of the CEO. I'll take questions at this stage. Councillor Roundtree.
Thank you, Mayor. So in the financials, I note that there is a $50,000 increase in the forecast costs for employee costs. Do we know what the extra 50,000 is for?
So you made, that will be a point in time. It will be just the ebbs and flows of people in and out, basically, at this point in time.
So we have set the budget, and then the forecast is that we're just going to be spending another $50,000.
No, but that,
So from the annual budget to the forecast budget, there's about a 50,000 difference.
that will probably change as the year still goes by.
Okay. Then with the utilities, same, it's $50,000 more.
Utilities are proving a little bit more problematic in
Yep,
terms of the
that's-
cost, so we're just keeping a very keen eye on those. And if the trend continues, we will come back to council as part of BR3 to seek some endorsement of extra costs. We're just keeping a very keen eye on that at the moment.
And I gather the 41,000 extra in finance costs is interest related.
Correct.
Thank you. That's all for the minute, but I have some more on some other areas.
Councillor Peach.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Noting that other income is up, and further to councillor Roundtree's questions, the operating surplus projected for the forecast for the end of the year is very similar to the first budget as adopted. So is that a change to BR1 where we saw a $50,000 increase in the
No,
deficit?
BR1 is where you'd still take your reference point. This is just, and it probably goes back to John Conway's point that looking at month by month sometimes skews the view of what's going on. But no, the BR1, BR2, it's where you'd keep the reference point. This is really just trying to forecast based on what's happened to date.
Councillor Roundtree.
With the externally funded projects, Can't find what page that is, just a minute. Yeah, so it's page 43 by the look of it. I noticed that council have applied to 2 funding sources, being FIRSA and Growing Regions program round 1 for the Coorong Thriving Towns projects. Is it possible that we could win 2 grants? If we win 1 grant, do we have to give 1 back, or how does that work?
If we were in that position, I would be shouting from this is really hedging bets more than thinking we'll be lucky for 2.
Just lucky for 2, but there isn't one that we'd have to say, if we get it, we have to give the other one back.
No, so you remember when we did the presentation, probably September last year, 2 of them are different, but we tried to package up as much as we could in a little bit of both to make sure that we were trying to basically hedge our bets.
So through you, Mayor, where it says invited to submit full application, that was sort of sounds a bit more like it's promising.
So we were excited that happened. We're now in the process of writing a full application.
Great, thank you.
We've jumped the first hurdle.
Correct.
Love a hurdle.
Councillors, I'm in the information report of the Office of the CEO. Councillor Qualman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Page 34, Tullum Bend Historic Rail Trail. We didn't know we had a rail trail. That should be just trail, wouldn't it?
Sorry, through you, Mayor. What was the question, Councillor Coleman?
Page 34,
Yes.
Australian Tourism Data Warehouse
Yes.
listings. What's it, the 5th dot down, Tullum Bend Historic Rail Trail.
Thank you. Ash reminded me they're interpretive signs rather than anything specific.
Okay, and just another one, well, if I may, Mr Mayor, please. Tullum Info Station, 113 visitors. Can anybody enlighten me that, are we getting better or more regular volunteers to man the facility over there at the moment, or are we still struggling with volunteers?
Volunteers are still a challenge across the district.
And can I ask further on to that, is it something worth that the CEO or council consider, and maybe pie in the sky, I don't know, but if we could have maybe to help, like we do at Meningie, we have a council employee working down there. We could have a council employee over there instead of having, you know, like their office here, you have them over there, but whether the infrastructure or the change or cost of the IT costs might be too much, but I just thought it might help to plug the hole.
To you, Mayor, if that was the desire of Chamber, we would do some cost benefit analysis and bring a report to council recommending one way or the other.
Yes.
In the long term, it is probably an asset that if council is keen to continue it as an information centre and tourism facility, probably will require more permanent staffing rather than a volunteer arrangement, but we are nowhere near that in terms of either costing it or the facility over there accommodating it.
Yes, that's a good answer. Thank you.
Just one question. In the finance section, would it be possible just, and I think it's a very important part of what you're reporting, is the actual cash in hand on a monthly basis? That is not hard, because, you know, you start off and a lot of councils do it. They give you if they've had to borrow that quarter or that month, or they don't. It's not a very big thing, but it is nice to know.
Nice to know, it may be, but I don't know which date you'd pick or which date of the cycle you'd pick in terms of that.
Well, it's at the end of each, if you're going to report on a monthly basis, it's a balance is the end of each month. Cash in hand, I'm not talking about your what's to come. It's just your cash flow.
I mean, I don't advertise my cash in hand.
Well, you don't have to, you know.
No, I'm just not quite sure of the purpose of. It would invite councillor, if we happen to have a month we paid a lot of people and we didn't have some income, a certain response which wouldn't be really accurate, because it's probably more about 3 and 6 month cycles and 12 months than it is.
Okay.
It is a monthly peak debt position, you could say, which I don't think really helps us much. We do have an audit committee. We have a finance committee. But, you know, that would be probably the more prudent area to have it in. Okay, anyone else in CEO's report, please. Okay, we'll move on to corporate and community information report, the second part of this. Councillors,
We didn't have a move and
I don't-
second, did we? Sorry?
Not for that.
No, no, there's a second thing.
Yeah, sometimes.
I'll move it.
you'll move it. You did right, councillor. Councillor Coleman moves, councillor Peach seconds. Assume there'll be no debate. Put the motion, all those in favour? Those against, it's carried unanimously. Perhaps we better move the second one first this time.
I'll move that, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Coleman's moving whatever the next one is, CC, Corporate and Community Information Report. Is there a seconder? Councillor Roundtree. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Questions in number 2?
Mine's not really a question. I just wanted to
Good.
thank the staff for the effort they did put into cleaning up the spaces before Christmas. It was actually noticeable that the places looked a lot more tidy, so appreciate their effort.
Okay, thank you. We'll take that. Any other questions in number 2? Councillor Maidman.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And through you, on page 50, was that, am I reading this correctly, 2 near misses in incidents?
Yep.
Is
Yep.
that high or
That's,
Don't know.
is that, it happens from time to time?
that would be quite common.
Okay,
But given the month, it would be no reason.
So is this determination by member of staff that someone or something's really,
And he missed many varied things. I don't think that's what we mean.
as long as everybody's okay, that's the main thing.
It covered many. Can I just say, Your Worship, that the reporting of incidents is extremely good in the house, and we don't want to discourage it. And it is broad. So there are a lot of things that you would typically think of where you'll say the incident then being reported, and I think that's good.
other questions, councillors? LeBland.
Yes, through you, just in relation to some of our customer service with the CRMs. We've got them, wondering, in terms of the outstanding ones, is there any specific reason that they're, this third going outstanding? Is there a reason for that?
Through you, Mayor. At any point in time, there will be outstanding ones. Some of them will have a long leg time, some of them will, it may end up that after the investigation, we have to say we can't do anything more with this. That's, if you look at the number completed over the period, the percentage is very good. So having any outstanding at any point, and they are looked at weekly by the relevant teams involved.
I guess then is the feedback for those that completed or those that cannot be done because the decision had to be made. Is that feedback taken back to the request person who made it?
When we close the request off. So through you, it varies depending on what it is. So some people may have got some information. Are you thinking about a specific incident?
In that, I'm just wondering whether that is actually happening.
Depends if it's completed or not.
And through the chair, if there's delays, people are kept informed of progress. Thank you.
Peach.
Just had a question regarding the 41 committee action register regarding the remediation work in the driveway at the Tintinara Hall. That it says it's going to be undertaken in the new year. Just wondered if that was scheduled or not.
Through you, Mayor. We'll take that on notice.
If I could just, through Mayor, note that there's a number of sucker trees that are now reappearing that may need to be dealt with when that work's undertaken.
Sure. Okay.
I thought someone might ask me the question about the development applications 22 versus 23. I just want to highlight that the mayor pointed out that, 22 there is certainly a lot of, big agricultural machines built, loaded, and quite a number of landfills. And 23 is sort of the number of dwellings built, that will be built, population growth. I can't tell you what 24 is going to look like, but, hopefully it's a mix of all of those, it's a big commercial development.
Okay, nearly done. We'll move on to number 3, roads and infrastructure information report. Can someone move that one, please? Councillor Roundtree is the mover. Is there a seconder? Councillor Qualman, put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, it's carried unanimously. Now, there is a little amendment. Page, Ashley, please, have you got a mic?
68.
It's page 68.
Sorry.
67, sorry. Page 67, Bridget, you just read it out what it is.
On that graph, it shows 38 damage bins. That Solo have confirmed that that number was doubled. There was gremlin somewhere. It's actually 19.
It's better as well.
That's better.
Okay, councillor Qualman, yes, sorry, I'm just, yep.
You're right. Well, that's the actual question that this page was going to question anyhow, Mr. Mayor. But so does it mean the other 19 then repairs or replace bins, or it's just 19 all up being damaged?
Instead of that 38 in the graph, it's 19.
So it could be repairs, damage, or replace bins.
Correct.
How does that compare to previous months, councillor?
Yeah, going by the graph there. Thank you.
Probably awaiting a further report around that whole bin issue at some stage, aren't we? Councillor Roundtree.
Thank you, Mayor. Under roads and civil operations, in the past, we used to get the number of kilometres graded. There, it was included in the report. It would say how many kilometres. Then I requested we get some names of the towns put in, but we seem to have got the names of the towns put in, but the kilometres done has dropped off. I'm wondering if we can get both that information into the report.
Through you, Mayor. We stopped doing that because we are rotating our graded drivers at the moment. It's probably more difficult than it has ever been. And we have some graded drivers who just have to come from Meningie up to here. We are short one graded driver at the moment. We're soon to be 2. One of them's retiring. So it's just a difficult exercise. We can do that, but it is taking resources from staff to do that.
I'm not through, Mayor. Why would it be taking resources when you used to provide it before?
We haven't got the staff, councillor.
To do it. So we don't record how many kilometres we're doing?
It's more the collation of it.
Relation. We're down a staff member in that department as well.
When we have a staff member back, can I request that we put that back in?
You can.
Thanks.
Just, we fight like all businesses with staff shortages.
I just felt we must be recording it somewhere, but I take your point, we can't collate it. But when we have staff and we are in a position to collate it, I would appreciate
The amount of work that goes into producing this agenda and every last part.
I'm sorry, I asked the question.
No.
Seems like a simple question to ask.
No, well, the answer is we haven't got the resources to provide everything every time that we may have or you do want. There's an enormous amount of information in this agenda and that takes a lot of time to collate. We're not saying we shouldn't do that. It's just that sometimes we haven't got enough resources to do everything every time. Questions?
Yeah.
Councillor Peach is the next one.
So just, if I may make a comment in this department, it's not in this at the moment, but I just wanted to commend staff on pulling the maintenance for the peak water scheme today. Another service provider didn't do that about a month ago in Tintinara, and it was good to see that thoughtfulness, the community come through.
Good result. Yeah, well, yeah, the risks were probably pretty high today.
Yeah.
At all levels, let alone the people doing the job. Exactly. Yeah. Thank you for that. Sorry. Back to you, Councillor Arthur.
We're going to start test holes and samples in the southeast of the district. Any idea where we're going to try down that way? In the notorious Snow Rubble area?
Through you, Mayor, we'll take that on notice.
Anyone else with questions? All right, we've had that motion put, haven't we, actually? Okay. Okay, move to the next one. Questions with notice. I have nil. Questions without notice. Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I suppose everybody's noticed just recently we have had some unwelcome guests. I would say Corellas in so substantial numbers again have rolled around Railway Terrace and Dixon's Reserve. And what's council doing about mitigating any damage if we can, or to persuade them to go somewhere else, Mr Mayor?
Through you, Mayor, mitigating damage is one thing, keeping them away is another. So we probably put our energy into keeping them away. If there's some obvious damage to council infrastructure, it would be, as with any other maintenance that we would have to do based on priority and level of risk to the asset.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, through you, to the CEO, we received the emails recently regarding the questions on notice from the last meeting. May I suggest that they be put into the minutes of this meeting so that people from the public can see the answers? But as at the present time, it's only the councillors have got the answers. And
the person who asked them, I believe.
Sorry,
And the person who asked them, yeah.
Yeah. And in future.
So there was two questions that were answered, is that right? In the email?
Yeah, but that's the elected members only.
Yeah,
There are.
No, I put-
people
no,
asking
no.
what the answer was.
yeah. Ashley?
You know, last month's meeting that we had the answers to the questions.
No.
Yeah, this month or last month, one or two. I think they just should be in.
So you'd like the
In next
question,
month's minutes, yeah,
the question, so you'll need to move that way.
in
Karen.
the agenda, yeah, so.
So you'll need to move that way, I believe, if you want
Well, I'll move that one.
the questions from Mr Pake and the answers as provided to councillors.
It's not on council Pake, there's also questions that were taken on notice from elected members.
Is there three?
Yes.
Two emails, one for you.
All right, well, the questions that were,
So it's just not members of the public. it's
All right.
just taken-
yes, you can move that way if you want to. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'd like to move that way. That'll be included in the agenda or the minutes or
The minutes or the attachments, councillor?
probably the minutes. It's better next agenda because the minutes you won't have to finish. You know, when they come in to us.
Actually, I'll give you a bit of a view on this, relates to something else.
So through the mayor, the questions that were taken on notice were asked during the course of debate of council reports. So at the last meeting, so they weren't questions asked without notice. They were questions asked during the course of debate, if that makes sense. So that is not something that would normally be minuted in council's minutes.
No, but what I'm saying is, I've got them here, right? The council re-entry asked blah, 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 and then there was the answer. Councillor Peach asked blah, 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 and the answer, Councillor Peach, once again. But they've only come to us, they don't go into the record, so that I've been sitting here watching this and I want to know what the answer was to it. All I'm saying is it should be put in the minutes.
Ashley, can I just ask, would that be better handled as an attachment, this minutes? Minutes of this meeting?
If the motion were moved and it got up, then yes, we could provide them as an attachment. Or yes, as the CEO has just suggested.
Yeah, and the other ones was the Council Peaches with the Stewart Road and also the CEO Loomis.
So
Actually,
the alternative, councillor, is to put them in the information document
Yeah.
the following month.
yeah, following, that's.
Following month. Is that what you,
Yes.
does that need a policy change? or-
Because what I'm saying, they probably can't go in the minutes when they come to
No.
us, because they haven't been investigated and we can't expect the staff to.
The minutes are a record of council's decisions. This is response to answer to questions either in debate or questions without notice. So I'm just trying to, the appropriate way, if you wish it to be publicly on the
Smith.
public record.
In the interest of today, could we move all of those questions as questions without notice and then move a motion to record them and the answers in the minutes? So take them all as move questions for today.
Easier to do as an attachment.
We have had some discussion internally, and we feel the best way of this to be handled is by an attachment to the minutes. Means it goes into the public record. There's not the minutes, an attachment to the minutes. We can't change the previous meeting. That,
No, so what I'm suggesting, Mr. Mayor, is that myself or Councillor Arthur moves all of those, asks all of those questions now, and that we can then move a motion to record them in today's minutes as we can do.
we could, or we'd be making hard work of it. My point would be,
Might be finished.
yeah, my point before I last that long. My point would be that I'm not quite sure what the downside of it being an attachment to the minutes is.
But you may, we may not, we can't hold up the minutes for, there's some legislation about when they have to be out by. We may not have the answers to those by the time the minutes are due to go out.
No, so I'm sorry. I'm referring to last meeting's questions, putting them in as questions without notice today so that they come into the next minutes as questions without notice from today.
It's like if we asked him again right now,
So
the answer's already there.
We'd get into the habit of asking the questions twice. That's why, surely. I'm trying to determine what would be wrong with it as an attachment. Ashley, you got
I'm quite happy with that motion. Because I realise it can't go in the minutes, say if it's something went through this time and the CEO to take it on notice and give the answer. It can't be put into the minutes that we would receive, they wouldn't have the time. So as long as it's recorded and people can see what the answer is from the staff, I'm happy. So it goes to the information document a month after.
Okay. I've got a motion, and I think that resolves the short-term issue. The second part is we might need to have a discussion around how what happened last meeting can be recorded appropriately in the future. There's two parts to this, which we'll just undertake internally. I need a seconder for your motion, though, councillors, on the screen.
Confirm the motion. Actually have a question for you.
Just see if I can get a seconder. Councillor Peach, you're the seconder.
We did just alter it. We're just having some.
I'm going to take the question while we alter it.
And my question is that if we have motions without notice or questions without this anywhere today, for example, how will that be dealt with?
Depends if we can answer the question, doesn't it?
Well, if that's correct, so if it can't be answered, will then it be dealt with in the same way, or you'll be able to then report the answer to this?
Not to this. No. The second part of this would be we need to resolve, because this is an ongoing subject of recording of answers from the executive back to councillors and therefore back to the public. As a governance issue, it's a separate issue.
So
We can resolve the short-term one because I've got a live motion now. The long-term one is a bit different.
however you
Well, I don't want to. To make the point, we're on a live recording. Okay, I've got a motion there. Is that how you want it, councillor Arthur?
Yes. No, that's not. Is this the same range? No, it's the. The other thing is, Mr. Mayor, I suppose you don't have to actually accept the questions without notice. But these were within discussion, not these were within discussion with elected leaders.
I would read that any questions that we couldn't respond to in the meeting in total be reported in the Office of CEO's info doc following meeting. That's how I would take that as a position, policy position. I'm looking.
It has, yes, it has to be very clear that it's not, okay, not doing the verbatim. But if there's a question that we take on notice during the course of the debate, you put it in the document, it has to be last.
That's right.
Can I just clarify as well? There's different, I think we get a bit confused in terms of questions without notice. So we have a section within our agenda that relates to questions without notice. But if a question is raised during the course of debate, it's just a query that's taken on notice. So you're wanting all of that to be recorded in the next month's.
Exactly what I'm asking for is what is in your, I think it's you, yeah, no, CEO's email of Monday the 22nd at 2:35. Questions 1, 2 and 3 asked by councillors during debate. Okay?
Yep.
The questions may be recorded in the minutes, but the answers aren't, because they were taken on notice, so.
Those questions would not have been because they were asked during reports.
Yeah, but the ratepayers are still entitled to know what the answers to those were when they taken notice. And the other ones were councillor, the public forum with Mr. Peaches.
So,
So he's got the answers, but no one else has.
so I might come back to, they could be put as questions with notice.
Correct?
Why are they not put as questions with notice?
Because, through Mr. Mayor, because we would have to have the agenda before the deadline, which we don't.
Earlier today, we had some discussion around questions that might be handled better, quicker.
So you may respect to what the purpose is.
And it does come back to the purpose, what the minutes are. So I think what we need to do is receive a little bit more, or I need to probably at least get a bit more advice with Ashley around exactly what the role of motions with notice and without and questions with notice and without entail. And also it appears questions asked in debate, which we cannot answer at the table at the front. We seem to be rolling around this problem all the time of recording everything. And I'll stand by what I've said earlier. The minutes are a recording of the decisions of council, not everything. I have got a motion that commits us in time immemorial that the answers on questions taken on notice. I might make the point that will, for questions on notice, that one.
Yeah, well, that's right. The questions was asked and the CEO says, or whoever cannot answer that at this stage, or take it on notice and give the information. It's a well-used practice within committees.
Whose committees?
Most committees, if you can't give the answer there, if I ask a question on a committee, so say the treasurer, he can't give the answer, they take it on notice.
Okay. I've got, you're speaking as a mover now. I'm going to actually formalise it up. Councillor Peach, do you want to speak?
Liam Smith,
As a seconder.
I support the intent of this. I do fundamentally agree with Councillor Arthur's point that ratepayers that do take an interest in questions and proceedings will find this beneficial. And more than happy to second it.
Anyone else? You'll close.
I'll close the vote, Mr. Mayor, but just saying it's probably not something you're going to require all the time. Because most times we do get an answer from the senior staff. But when we don't, ratepayers and us in particular, entitled to an answer.
Okay.
Close.
Motion is, as you read it on the screen, councillors, that answers to questions taken on notice during the course of debate at a council board in the Office of CEO's information document the month following that council meeting. The motion, all those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. I am still in questions without notice, I think. Okay, we finished that one. Motions with notice. Councillor Peach. Now, councillor, I understand you have amended your,
Indeed, I have. I've varied it and I've sent that through
varied it.
earlier.
Actually, can we see that on the screen in a second? We've got that.
I'll just put it up and type how we do that.
We'll just type it.
Okay. Sorry, I was just trying to show the information.
We have played about this.
You haven't had it before, but you will in a minute if we get it up on the screen.
If not, we'll have to type it.
What is the motion?
Well, I'm just waiting for it because it is quite an extensive motion. That's why I'm waiting for it.
Need on the screen.
So this builds on the presentation we had last week around health service provision at Canalpin and Tintinara, the workshop. So we're just hoping we can get it up.
We can't, maybe we type it.
The text. You want me to read it then? No. I haven't got it to read.
Oh.
Since I'm an old fashioned person, you know I love a bit of paper. Well, councillor Peach can read it himself. One of the two. You got it, councillor, you can read it?
I do.
Well, away you go. Read it.
The amended motion-
Verbatim, please.
That the correspondence received by council regarding community health is recorded in full in the January 2024 council minutes as an appendix. That the council thanks the representatives of the RMC LHN for attending a briefing to council on the 16th of January and answering questions from council and community, and for the improved communication with community since. That council expresses severe disappointment, RMC LHN, in implementing significant structural changes to the service provision in Tintinara and Canalpin with zero public and stakeholder consultation or communication, and that council, recognising the needs across our communities, continues to advocate for the full return of services previously delivered, including the health clinics being staffed and available for walk-ins. And it should have and available for walk-ins after that, sorry.
Do we take?
So the first point, councillor, just as a matter of process, is that in putting the, I think, 18 correspondence supporting bringing us back to the previous position of health at Canalpin and Tintinara, we probably cannot have in the minutes their names.
I'm more than comfortable, Mr Mayor, if there are certain items that need to be redacted. I'm also more than comfortable if staff want to contact those people and ask them. But if the redacted option, I think the tone of those letters will still be very clear, even if the names are
Yeah,
identified details are removed.
nonetheless, it
We would read it.
would be redacted. That's the first thing. Is there any other structural issues we have with this?
We would redact anything that was identified, particularly when some of them are risk of weaknesses or.
Yeah.
ailments.
And so also if people have identified themselves by their illnesses or conditions or whatever, that would have to be redacted as well. I think that's all I have. We need to pursue point 4 urgently. We don't understand that. So move councillor Peet. You got a seconder?
Good move.
Councillor Roundtree is the seconder. So Jonathan, councillor, sorry, you want to speak to your motion, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I'd like to express, as I have in the motion, appreciation for the 2 representatives that came to address us last Tuesday. It was good to see them coming forward to take those questions from council and community. I'd also like to express my thanks to the residents from Meningie, Tintinara and Kenelpin that took time out of their day on a warm day to come and show the support for the position of maintaining services and to put some of their views and questions across as well. Mr Mayor, it became very clear during that meeting that there was no consultation with community around the decisions that were taken to withdraw and limit services, but that rather an internal review was held, that they did not have conversations with their consumers, as they would call those receiving healthcare in our regional communities. Of concern out of that meeting were a number of, well, let me start with the positives, Mr Mayor. I'd also note that 2 hours prior to that meeting occurring, a press release was put out announcing some reinstatement of services on a booked basis. And the representatives did make it clear that those in our community did not need a referral from a doctor, but could self-refer. So to those watching today, I just want to make that clear that you are able to call the number that was on that press release that has been publicised and I believe will be in a mail out to Tintinara residents and Kenelpin residents this coming week and self-refer. So it was good to see that announcement and that at least some of our services have come back, including blood testing. Of concern, particularly for me, was that the representatives indicated that they would triage service provision across the entire catchment area. Now that includes the entirety of the Riverland, the Mallee and the Coorong. While I understand that from their point of view, I don't think that's acceptable from our community's point of view. We don't have other health services in Tintinara, whereas I would note that most of their other contact points do. They have doctors or hospitals. I would acknowledge that we do have the service of medical services in Kenelpin 2 days a week, but for the rest of that time, the highway area between Tailem Bend and Keith does not have the provision of basic medical services. Triaging, as they said they would do over that broadened area, leaves our most vulnerable at risk, and I don't think that's acceptable. I'd like to express, to note some personal experiences in the time since. When first calling to make a booking for somebody else to the Murray Bridge number, we were advised on the phone that we needed to call the Tintinara Clinic, and the staff member at the other end expressed surprise that the clinic had been closed. This did not appear to be a planned transition, but as one of our community members said, a band-aid. There have been a number of issues since, and I'm sure these will be rectified. And I must say, I've had some very constructive conversations with RMC, LNH since about these issues, including a nurse that drove down from Murray Bridge to Tintinara and then could not access the clinic because there was no key that had been provided. Recently, elderly patients have been told they will not be able to have blood pressure checks at a level of service that they are used to, and have been advised that they need to pursue the alternative model of self-testing at home, with funding being provided by the RMC LHN. Mr Mayor, we need to do more. We need to fight to get our services back. And I think this motion sums up the experience of the last week and 6 months and commits us to doing more about it. I'll commend the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Roundtree, you wish to speak?
No, just reiterate whatever, all the words spoken by councillor Peach. It's a very hot topic down our way, and like he pointed out, we don't have a lot of other options that the other areas do, and I think that's a really significant point that seemed to be overlooked, and the people that were presenting to us almost seemed a bit surprised by that information, and they made a comment that Swan Hill or Swan
Swan Reach.
Reach didn't have the same service, and the response to that from the community was, well, they didn't have it to start with, they didn't lose it, they just never had it. And we had a service, and it was a valuable service that people wanted and were using, and it was just abruptly taken away without consultation, and I think that was deplorable.
Okay, anyone else wish to speak?
I have a question in relation to this. So the intent also would be then, from a council perspective, that yourself, Mr. Mayor, and CEO would take this to a much higher level.
Mhm.
You're right to the CEO and to the minister.
The minister, yeah. Yes, councillor. I'd been intending to try and get a meeting with the minister. Anyone else, councillors?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I sort of agree with a lot of what's been in there. Although I don't really know, the council, through support, the CEO getting representatives here. But as you know, I did have a meeting with the minister and the CEO of SA Health. Still didn't get an answer on it. But I think one of the other things was everybody sort of jumped on the bandwagon a bit early because actually the new system didn't start till yesterday, while people were trying to run last week to make appointments. But it is something we need, and there's no doubt about it. And one of the things is you want the population to have to move out because they haven't got the facilities, the health facilities. And as can help, as Councillor Bland often says about the older ones, they need more help, whether it's just getting to the doctors to get a blood test and all that sort of thing. And as I mentioned to last week, and I mentioned the minister, you know, sending a 80-plus-year-old in a 12-seater bus, 80 k's each way to get a blood test is not a good look, and it's elderly abuse, in my opinion. That's exactly what I told him. So yes, we do need this.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, councillor Peach, you're closed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just, to councillor Arthur's point, the staff that were present at last Tuesday's briefing did indicate that we could call immediately to book those appointments and conversations afterwards. And I think that was a point that our residents made at that meeting, was that while they announced the changes took effect from yesterday, in essence, the gutting of services and the changes took place 6 months ago, and there hasn't been communication since. I close.
Okay, councillors, you're aware there's a 4-part motion on the screen. There's a variance on the original motion with notice. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. 13.2, motions without notice, councillors. Okay, there is none. We move on to minute action list number 14, councillors. Questions? There is none. Okay, there is none.
I do it. And I may be just trying just not in relation to the UV charging station. Obviously, there's been some correspondence around this location, etc. It's due for review in March. We'll have a report before then.
I think it's out for public consultation at present, I believe.
Closing 26th of February, so.
Yeah.
through the chair, that particular motion is in relationship to the community land management plan requirements. So essentially it is relating to a question of is it acceptable to use this site, which is public land for services of the TV channels?
The debate is moving.
And yes, that will come back.
And in relation to the public consultation, when will the information on that come back?
So you, I think that's what Miles was just saying, that
No, that's the board approval.
the board, so there's 3 sites, we'll wait for the community consultation to finish, that may be March or April.
Councillor Roundtree.
With regards to the flag flying policy, I'll note that the consultation deadline is February. Have we had much response to date?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Taken there's no others. So for those watching the live stream, please be advised the meeting is about to move into confidence. And the live stream will stop. For those who wish to view the end of the meeting, the video will be available on YouTube after today's meeting.